Hey wizards, how you doing? Well, life, it's happening, right? The dream always revolving around the center of awareness, and you don't really know how it's going to, nobody can predict how it is going to develop. Now, still, we have to ride the waves and try to get attuned to that flow. It's going to get really easier because we used to move from the intellectual center for thousands of years, developing this uh, first person mind, as we can call it persona, or just the talking head. And we switched up to another level of reality, and it's really different. It's really just going after your intuition, and then all the things sort of align. Now, there's this thing that we are still busy working on projects, but to be really honest with you, it's all maybe 90% of that work is happening on the inside, and then perhaps only 10% of the work will happen when you engage in reality, and it will feel effortless if you have nailed down the frequency, if you have nailed down the feeling, if you have nailed down the subconscious part, which is the 90% of your data anyway. Then what crystallizes in the physical reality feels just like play, feels just effortless, and things take shape and form, and then they play out, and then they disappear. So having no idea, actually, it's easier to be successful when you have no idea. And this is really confusing to this ego that we built, right? Because the ego is just like scanning the system and is trying to assemble a logic. But now we're in a hyperdrive, we're hyperinflating the ego and hyperinflating the logic to the point where there is like every possible logic, every possible perspective can be in the awareness of one individual. So all of a sudden you have 12 points of view, then you have 144 points of view, you have 400 points of view. It's like analyzing something and trying to know a way in which things will work out is simply is going to drive you crazy, and then you won't be able to get the empirical data and kind of fix the result. So what can we do to actually apply this Tinky Winky Pad, this smartphone that we developed, because already there is a device right now, and there is a Google, and there is the AI, and it's obviously doing the work for us. And I wouldn't be paranoid to say that the AI is going to, just assimilate everybody into a transhumanist society, whatever. That's just like an option. That's just like a timeline that is created for the just experimentation of every possibility in the universe. Timelines are calculated and they're created, but collectively we are going to be greatly enhanced. But this is simply happening because the consciousness itself is transcending the idea of the calculator, mechanical Newtonian reality. So we nail it, and we have the device that can, calculate faster than we used to do, and then we have a 3D printer, right? But then we are also realizing ways we can just talk telepathically, and we can print things from pure consciousness into materialization. It is actually in our human capacity to we are more advanced than the AI, right? So we just give the AI the tasks of our physical world, because it is computing about language or around language, and it's computing about objects and numbers, etc. Right? But we are transcending into the next dimension, so we have now just a non-linear way of perceiving reality, and that's your connection with the universal mind, with the God mind, where there is just all knowingness. So what is it worth to actually try to think when you are the all-seeing eye, when you know everything all at once? When you know everything all at once, at any given moment you can tap into the infinite universe and its data, and it is simply there. It is the same thing that is happening with, like, if you have Google, why would you want to memorize books or like go to school and like learn something, because you can just pick it up when you need it. You just be like, hey Siri, hey Google, and then just get the info sheet on anything. As far as well, most things are available, right? But there's this thing that we're still trying to copyright things, and we're still trying to sell our efforts. So when we compile the data, when we publish something, we are still getting paid by credits of whatever the monetary system is in this civilization. But actually, there's no need to even do that, because everything is free. But this might take a couple more years to just synchronize. So at the moment, the best thing that we can do with money stuff is just like pay everybody like as much as they want, because there is no finite resource. There could be objects that are made to be scarce or unique, which gives them some value, but the general objects are, there's only one apple of, like every single apple is unique, but then who really needs something, right? That's like it needs to be a very magical object for the attainment of that object to have like a really special, unique meaning and somebody's purpose to be related to. But the general objects are for consumption, and just like, the how many t-shirts and flip-flops we have in the world, like nobody's going to run out of clothes and nobody's going to run out of food or money ever again. It is more of the habit and the mindset that might be lingering from the past that is also going to pick up and change with just, time and new generations coming into the play. It's always like the young ones, the new generations, they are going to model something new, because they're not already formed in a certain type of programming. Now, I see no battle of good and evil, even in the very sort of perverse or just extreme explorations of possibilities of the God mind. Okay, because we really tried everything, and then things went into very, 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 very different unique niches and funnels and branches that were sometimes not organic to the original God code. And still, everything is allowed in the experimentation, and those things that cannot assume organic architecture, they have a shorter expiry date. And this is beautiful about this reality, that it's really giving us the opportunity to get creative and weird, and we can try everything out. And it doesn't necessarily need to be something that is going to like give a positive get a 5-star rating from everybody in the universe. We can get into some weird shit, and after experiencing, we all might see that it's like, well, it's good that we tried that, because now we know nobody likes that shit. So this is what this type of density, this type of realm is kind of like good for. It's a very short period of time. Even thousands of years here are they're very insignificant manifestations, where it's just an experiment, and any any taking these distortions, going into these distortions, like when we talk about the fallen angels, right, and then like going into distortion of what God preset it, or the original architecture of the God mind has preset it. Well, original architecture of the God mind needed to allow, in the first place, a space for a distortion to occur, because obviously it was the God mind itself being like, what if we introduce an error, and then just that error fractalizes into all these different potentials, and we write some code, and then we press the render button, and then the whole universe shows up, and it's kind of like weird and twisted and diabolical, and then at the same time is just an occurrence. And for many, 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 many mirrored fractal points of perspective of God self-awareness that are kind of like exploring this distorted reality from every possible angle, we are like, okay, some like fallen angels are like keeping us trapped in this realm of suffering, and then it's so twisted and weird. Like my dark twisted fantasy does not even connect into that which is like eternal. So that's a weird freaking experience. But that weird freaking experience did birth some really amazing things, and some kind of horrid things. And well, definitely we have been integrating everything, and from this individual perspective of my tree of life, I've definitely expanded, and I have taken all different perspectives from the tree of life, from the most miserable to the most terrific. And even though like I would never want to go again and like feel, I don't know, like molested, bullied, raped, and all these like all these things, it is somewhat as a part of the jigsaw puzzle of the greater attempt. I have to say, it was worth it. The developmental glitches that occurred and were kind of like really horrid, and then still it was worth it. And we will avoid the future extreme polarization into just like extreme distortion, right? Well, here's the thing, it was always like the distortion was always just a phenomenal experience, and then consciousness always had the opportunity to sign out from any given fractal, but just that in the distortion people would not be aware of that. So that was kind of like a bummer that we were trying to fix and solve for a long time, and something that evolves over time, or it's a time-based build, okay, that you have a phenomenal structure that evolves through layers that we call time, and then it is aware of itself, and then it identifies with what it is. It can always go back into source architecture, or just dissolve its deformity, but then everybody just chooses to live. So it was more like, okay, if we choose to live in this non-perfect state of being that we chose to create, can we at least minimize the experience of suffering? And well, and of course there were all kind of experiences. There were quite transcendent experiences where it's just like acceptance of the imperfect dream state that we generated, and then just accepting that with love, and then even transcending the notion of imperfection, of something being wrong, and seeing that distortion as a part of perfection, because suffering is only in rejection of whatever that reality might show up as. And reality shows up as a lot of like quite a lot of diabolical deformities, and it's hard to accept and learn to love in an unconditional way all these things. So it's quite a school. It's literally like, it's a school of it's like a video game, like Sims, in which you're allowed to do everything that is like a time-based experiment. So it has an expiration date, so even if you create a monster, it does not really matter, because nothing is forever. But then even those monsters that we like can ascend. So that's amazing. Like even those creatures that can be kind of like blending in the weirdness of this the Luciferian effect of being able to get freaky, right? Let me call it that, in lack of better words. So even those beings who can get into like a really freaky, crazy. Uh, it's everybody can bring that back into the eternal. So whatever has been created here, and if it has self-love, then it is not rejected by the God mind, and that is a choice of every single individuality, whether they want to keep that or just relax and go back home as pure consciousness and reunite with whatever is the higher perspective of their existence in the eternal, or just reunite with source. So I'm definitely keeping my avatar, and I'm definitely going to try to evolve in new ways, different ways, uh, and still try out all the things that this reality has to offer, because even though I get saturated from experience in every like 7 year cycle, there is always like the new earth, and that's just endlessly it can permutate endlessly, and it's always like really 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 interesting. I guess that is that. This is the Captain's Log, Planet Earth. See you guys.